Hey y'all, welcome to Parent Empowerment with Mandy Drogin. I'm Mandy. I'm just a mom sitting down having real conversations with real Texas parents about what's going on in our schools. Today, I'm joined by a mom of two from Longview, Texas, Renee. Renee has had mixed experiences, a phenomenal experience for her daughter in the public school system where she was a softball superstar, and a very different experience with her son who has Asperger's. Renee, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So let's start. Yeah, we're so glad to have you. Let's start off. I would love for you to share the first time we spoke. You spoke about your daughter and your son and kind of why you support the parent empowerment movement, specifically because, as we all know, each child is different. Each child has different needs and different levels of accomplishment or abilities. And so let me hear about your wonderful experience with your daughter in the traditional public school system.
Right. And I think that's where the miscommunication comes in. Is I'm not in any way against public schools, because my daughter had an incredible experience. She was able to go through being all the sports, very high academic. She's now playing in college. In high school, she took all of the AP classes that were offered. She's now in college, majoring in biochemistry. Their team just won a national championship. She's doing pre-med. She says that without a doubt, the AP classes she took in high school and her education there helped her tremendously to be where she's at. She's a 4.0, starting the process of looking to apply to med schools. I mean, just all those things. It was a great experience for her. We had no issues. But she's a very different kid than my son. He has different needs than she did.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think you're exactly right. Sometimes people, unfortunately, have this belief, or the kind of the propaganda from some of the unions and whatnot have made it their way into the community, that somehow empowering parents with selecting the best choice of school for their child is somehow saying we don't love public schools. I myself am a public school parent as well. I send my children to an incredible public charter school, but that's right. We really want to pick the best environment. So thrilled to hear about your daughter's wonderful experience and that they prepared her clearly to launch and be a happy, successful Texan and become a doctor and really, give back to our great state. That is phenomenal. So then I would love for you to share with me a little bit about your story with your son, and for our watchers that pay attention to some of the House committee and Senate committee hearings, you gave me the opportunity to share your story when the Texas legislature had a public hearing in the Senate on education savings accounts. And so that is online, and I read the email that you sent me, a little condensed. I tried to make it go fast because the time goes quick, but I shared your story about your son, and I was flooded with text messages and emails from Texas parents who had similar stories. But can you tell us about your experience, again, from your own mouth, please?
Well, I mean, his public education was great until junior high. He has Asperger's, very high functioning on the autism scale, where he lacks is socially. I mean, he just lacks those social skills, which is very typical of these children. I mean, I do speech therapy with children. That's my occupation. And that's very typical of these kids. We tried everything possible. We had him in counseling. We were doing everything. And in junior high, the wheels came off. He was bullied, just all the constant things that were said to him about the way he looked, the way he acted, just it just kept getting to him. And we knew there was an issue. We were seeking treatment. We were seeking psychiatrists, counselors, and everything. And it was one day my husband had picked him up from school because he had had a rough day. And I'd called his doctor and I went to the pharmacy, and that's when my husband found him in his room with a rope around his neck. And so we got him down, took him to the hospital. He had all the marks on him. And when the ER nurses came in and were like, tell us what's going on. And he said, I never should have been born. And they were like, who told you that? And he's like, that's what all the kids said to me. And so it really just, at that point, we were like, we don't know what we're going to do, but we have to do something because this is no longer working. We can't put him back into that environment. And my viewpoint was, I didn't want to keep him at home just with us because that's where he was lacking, was socially. So I needed him somewhere where he could get that interaction. And I understand at the public schools, they have so many kids. It is such large environments, and mainly where his issues were hallways, lunchrooms, PEs, where it was just the large crowds. It was never just sitting in the classroom. The teachers were great. He never had an issue, but it was in those large, populations where, he would kind of get taunted. And so we made the decision to put him in a local Christian school because we just felt like he needed a smaller environment. He had to. So we felt like there he could have that environment while still getting that social interaction. We went to the school. We were very open and transparent about everything with him, everything he had been through. And we wanted to be open because we wanted them to know, this is where this kid's at. This is what you're getting. And so they welcomed us in with open arms. He graduated from that private school. And he just finished his first year of college. So for me, parent choice is not about one over the other. It's not a competition. It's about the right fit for that child. And I have two kids that are very, very different. And this is what I try to say is we were able to put him in private school. I was able to adjust my schedule to drop him off and pick him up across town every day. We were able to financially do that. My concern is, what about the parents that aren't able to do that? I mean, it's not cheap. It takes a whole lot of logistics. So what about the families that don't have that choice, that don't have that extra income to make those choices? Because other than private school, our other option was keep him home, homeschooling, or put him in another public school. Well, we were already in one of the smaller public schools in our area. So am I going to take him and put him in a 5A, 6A? I mean, it just, for us, it's just he needed that smaller environment with that closer attention to be able to grow and thrive and become who he is today. And that's, like I said, my main concern. I don't think it's a competition. I think it's about doing what's right for that child at that time. And we were fortunate that we could make that decision. But I feel like financially, especially now, I mean, that was, years ago. I mean, now with our current economic situation and inflation, just how expensive everything is now, I can imagine that there's even more families in that position to not be able to do that financially.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that very deeply personal story from your own mouth. Like I said, I had so many parents that said, my story is similar. We've been dealing with this, and unfortunately, it's heartbreaking because I have several parents that I've talked to that they're stuck. They don't have the resources. And like told me, you were working with the school and they were trying and they were doing their best, but it was really just the environment. And for so many parents right now, it really is just the environment and the children that they're around. And to some extent, these schools are in a catch-22, right? They've got children that are doing the bullying and they have to be educated and that situation. And they've got the children that are suffering what really can amount to a lifetime of trauma when someone tells them, your brain is broken and you shouldn't have been born. It just is.
I mean, it's taken, I would say, 7 years of deprogramming to, and when he initially switched over, it wasn't like he was just instantly better. We went through, after meeting with the doctors and hospitals and stuff, they suggested he have intensive counseling. And we went, and I was like, but I don't understand why he's not getting better. And they're like, he basically has PTSD. Any school environment you put him in, he's going to feel this. It's that anxiety builds up in him. And for the longest, he would say, but what if it happens again? What when it happens? It's like he could not get past that, like, it might happen again, and still, I mean, you still see today some of those little seeds of doubts pop up in his head. But on the whole, he's doing great.
That's wonderful. I'm glad to hear that he's doing great. And I think it's really important. You talked about, I'm so grateful, and I know the parents of Texas are grateful that you share this story and that you're advocating, particularly for those that don't have the financial resources that your family did, to not only pay for the private school tuition, but also the therapy that he needed for years and years. And that's a really important part of education savings accounts, is it not only can be used for tuition at schools, but it can also be used for therapies and tutoring and a lot of services that can help children that have unfortunately experienced the PTSD that your child experienced, and that parents, it's not just, here you can only transfer it for tuition, but you can really ensure that if your child has gone through this, we want to make sure they get the help they need so that they can, and be in the right environment so they can grow and thrive. Well, thank you for being willing to speak out. I remember, the first time that you and I spoke and you told the story, and it was just kind of, it's gut wrenching when you hear a parent, as a mom myself, it brings tears to your eyes, because we all love our children, and that the trauma of having a child attempt to end their life or losing a child, you never heal from that either as a parent. And so thank you for your courageous.
Right. And that's the hard thing is, you think after that many years, it would not still cut me, but it does. And it always will. And I guess when I've tried to share my story, with other representatives and stuff, that's kind of where I felt the disconnect, that I could share that story and you still couldn't relate or empathize with where I was coming from.
So can you elaborate a little bit? Can you, so you went after your experience and recognizing that ESAs were there, you went and talked to your state rep.
I did. And it was with a phone conversation. And I just, I was like, I just think it's important to hear my side, and kind of what we went through. And my goal is to see, I know there's so many questions out there. Well, parents could use it for this. They could do this. They could do that. And it's like, we can't approach this as, well, what if the parents don't do the right thing? I think we have to approach it as, we've got to give these kids every opportunity, and we've got to put them in this situation where they're going to thrive. And that was the point I was trying to get across when I was sharing my story. And it was just kind of like, well, the reaction I got was private schools don't want this. They don't want state funding. They don't want it. And that was the reaction I got. No, it wasn't as, gosh, I'm sorry that happened. I'm sorry you had that experience. Maybe we can figure out a way to do things better. It was just a, no, it's not going to happen. No, the private schools don't want this. No, we don't want this. And it's not, like I said, it's not against public schools. It's not against teachers. It's not against anything. It's because they have an incredibly important job. And like I said, they do an excellent job. It's just that just as not every one of us goes to the same church, not every one of us goes to the same doctor. I mean, we have to find the places that fit and work for us. And I don't believe that the educational setting is any different. Otherwise, there wouldn't be private colleges. There wouldn't be public colleges. There wouldn't be, all these choices that we have. So I just don't feel like we should be locked into that one school choice, that one school district that we live in. We should be able to put that kid where they're going to thrive and do the best. And when we do that, when we champion for the kid and we put them in that situation where they can win, where they can get the best outcome, then we get great citizens. We get great adults. We get adults that are able to thrive and get an education and go to trade school, go to college, take care of themselves. That's what we're able to get. Because I truly don't feel like we would be where we're at today with him if we hadn't have made the change and moved him.
Well, yes to all of what you're saying. That's 100% correct. And that's what this is about, is recognizing that the parents know and love their children most and best and truly are invested.
I was kind of like, I felt like I'm continuing to live in that district. We continue to send our daughter there. I continue to pay my taxes. I continue to work and pay in, yet, for all of those years, there was not a dime spent on him from the state side of things. We didn't see any of that return on what we were, paying in. Mm-hmm. And everyone says, well, you have a choice, you can make it happen. And no, private schools are expensive. They receive no outside funding. And then those teachers on a whole are making a lot less than public school teachers. Mm-hmm. But it's a smaller environment. And it's just some kids need that. Some kids have to have that to thrive.
That's right.
And he was one of them.
That's 100% correct. And so in sharing probably what I feel safe to say would be probably some of the darkest moments of your life, of any parent's life, when they see their child suffering, you made a choice. You had the resources to make the choice, which is what education savings accounts are about, right? Giving every parent, regardless of their income or zip code, a choice. And let's hear the good news. Let's hear the light at the end of the deep, dark tunnel that you were in. Can you share about what your son is doing now, what you're preparing to do here shortly for him to give back?
He'll be a sophomore in college. He's doing great. He's majoring in computer science. He's very confident now, doing great, drives, works. He's kind of doing all the things. My family and I are getting ready to, next week, we're going to Guatemala on a medical mission trip where we'll spend the week serving, and Zach's going with us. So we'll all get to help and participate. My husband and daughter will be back in the surgery area. helping. So we basically will be assisting in supplies and stuff, Zachary and I, but we will provide basic health care, visits with providers, and then also surgeries will be performed that are needed. So that's what we're going to do next week. So this will be our third year to go as a family. So that's what we've chosen to do for our family vacations in the summer, is to go and give back. And, for Zachary's perspective, for those kids can sometimes have tunnel vision of, only their circumstances and their situations. It's been great for, I would say, both of our kids as well as us to kind of see, that we're blessed to be here and born in this country. And, and when you're given things, it's great to give back.
That's amazing. Well, I'm so thrilled to hear that both of your children are excelling and contributing to Texas and the world. That's really, I know that I see the big smile now. You're a proud mom, as you should be. All parents want to feel that, obviously. So before we wrap up, I would love for you to share reiterate why you support education savings accounts for every parent, and what a parent that has experienced or is experiencing the trauma that your child and your family experienced from bullying, what they can do and to help, fix the situation.
Right. I mean, like I said, for me, I support it because I don't think it's a competition. It should not be looked as a competition with public schools. It should be looked as giving the parent the tools and the means to do what is best for that child's needs. It's not a one-size-fits-all system. It just is not. So that's why I'm so passionate about it, because not everyone has the financial resources to be able to make that decision and do what's best for their child. I just think, and if you do have a child, I mean, I would say finding a counselor is absolutely the most important thing. We did with him equine therapy. We found someone that did it and specialized and had horses. And so instead of him just sitting on a couch and talking to somebody, he was walking around, working with the horses, grooming them, cleaning them. And that's what we found worked best for him. And that's what most of the counselors said, is if kids can feel like they're doing something and connecting with something else, with another animal, and gaining their trust in doing that, then generally they end up getting more out of their therapy sessions. So that was the choice we made. We searched pretty hard to find someone, and he absolutely loved it, getting to work with the horses and the therapist a couple of times a week. So that's what we did. And just, you got to find the right fit for that kid. You've got to find where they fit in and where they can grow and be the person that God created them to be. And they've got to know that and see that and have confidence in themselves. And you've got to put them in the environment where they can get that built.
Thank you, Renee, for your courage to speak out and share your story. I know there are thousands of parents that will be touched to know there's light at the end of the tunnel. And to the parents of Texas, join us in this fight for your kids, for their future. I'm Mandy Drogin with Parent Empowerment, and now you have the power.